I'm going to come out here because I'm short, and the podium would not allow you to look at me properly. Governor General, I now adopt the list, protocol list that Mr. Dolo has expressed to give you enough opportunity to hear the few words that I have to say to you. When Mr. Dolo was speaking, I couldn't believe that he was referring to me. And I had my doubts as well, because he made me 88, how many years older in practice? No. I qualified as an English barrister in 1957. I was honored very recently by the OECS Bar because I happen to be the longest serving member of the Eastern Caribbean as a Queen's Counsel. I didn't say that to promote any kind of obvious clapping. I was just fortunate enough to live long enough at the time that I have done to receive it. Now, Mr. Dolo is a man of words, and I decided that I'm a man of, I talk a lot. So I decided to put something in writing to spare you the drudgery of having to hear me speak too long. Let me at once congratulate all graduates of the 8th convocation of the American International Medical University. It must be a real pleasure to achieve this graduating status, which is almost always accepted with a sense of concern. Congratulations. And the ladies look very lovely in their costumes. Thank you very much. When you graduate, it brings happiness of achieving an important stage in one's life and concern in attempting to what the future brings. So there we are. We're happy to graduate. We're happy to be successful, but we're concerned about the future. Although learning is a continuous and lifelong process, there are 3 acknowledged stages in one's education. These are when you first attend school as an infant, then when you continue school as a teenager, and thirdly, when such as on your present circumstance, you graduate in the profession of your choice. The latest of these being the most perplexing because it involves the world of work and your future. It is a test of engaging your future against the background of your studies. The present stage in your education is rather interesting in that you may continue with your studies to specialize, or you may decide to work first and then specialize. Whatever you decide, you are entering an interesting and difficult stage. It reminds me of Dickens in his publication of Tale of Two Cities, It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I allude to this reference having regard to the times in which we live. Complex and involved, and yet easy of access, and in communication particularly. In fact, it is this facility in communication which has changed our way of living completely. Can you imagine the transformation for which people like me have had to endure? Let me take a minute or two to address you by guiding you through the transformation of our existence. I can recall my father uttering in his 70s, when he was in his 70s, "What is this world coming to? Imagine them placing a man on the moon? Unbelievable." This was the beginning of the space age and opened the world to us like driving on a superhighway. When I went to study in England in the 50s, we could only do so by boat. There was no telephone connection to the Caribbean, and airmail correspondence took more than 1 week. One had to queue up for a place in the university library, as well as queuing up for reference books. Today, we can receive our education and degrees by accessing the internet at home. How incredibly fortunate. It means that persons who are unable to afford university can do so depending on the nature of the qualification outside of a university. Not so in your case, as you require the necessary instruments and practical experience to do so. There is, however, an area of disadvantage insofar as medicine is concerned, in that there can be much dependence on instruments. Of course, this can only be overcome with experience, but sometimes the ability to absorb gives way to the facility of the accuracy of the instrument. What I wish to convey is that in your profession, there's no substitution for perception, dedication, and experience. Of course, experience is the hallmark of any profession, but it is more pronounced in medicine, where human lives are involved. Naturally, in everything in this world, there's the good and the bad. The precipitation of communication, which has made information easily accessible, seems to be plunging people headlong into disrespect. Wherever you go now, cell phones are obviously displayed. Often at meetings or in gatherings, persons disregard the reason for their presence and keep poking at their instrument, sometimes unbelievably to persons at the same gathering. This is so disrespectful. Also, there seems to be creeping in this communication a form of shorthand experience, different from person to person, both based on a phonetic background. I mention this because it's a wrong habit and exercise which will eventually become a normal practice. They shorten every word, use all forms of shorthand experience to communicate. We can observe this in the habitual communication of cell phone use, particularly in the young. But coming to you, you're not listening to all this. You're here happily to graduate. What then is your goal? Where do we go from here? This is what's occupying your mind, I hope, now. You should take this opportunity to reflect in your approach to your future. True enough, you have a profession, but that is not the end. What is required of you now is what use you put to it. If I may suggest, you should be faithful to yourself. Seek advice as to the best way forward relating to your intentions. Having decided, make a firm commitment to the pursuit of your choice. In the world of work, there's no one to prod you along, and you may falter, though your fault, not through your fault, but do not despair. Continue in your pursuits resolutely. Be true to yourself and be committed to your intentions. When I left secondary school, the study of law was the furthest from my mind. I wanted to study agriculture or be a businessman. A spinster aunt of mine decided law was for me. Permit me to share with you that I've had many successes and also many disappointments in my life. But I have adopted a philosophy to guide me through this life. I follow the elements of nature in that I say to myself, it does not rain every day, but you expect the sun to shine sometimes, and the rain to fall sometimes. And so you should pattern your life accordingly and refer to it as such. There will be good times and disappointing times, or indifferent times. Whatever the circumstances, enjoy it. Endure it, not enjoy it. Enjoy it. Because life is never smooth. But if you persist in the pursuit of your intentions, you will find life bearable and interesting. The world today appears to be bent on inflicting suffering and disrespect. Even nature appears to be expressed in a rebellious existence. There's trouble and discord all around the world today, bringing suffering to the innocent and those who are not part and parcel of their intentions. But while you must take cognizance of this world around you, you should enjoy the moments that make you happy and give your satisfaction. You have earned it. Be forthright and determined in your future and go on your way with success. Thank you.